Okay, think about this for a second. What if love wasn't just a feeling? What if it was more like an argument? A problem you could solve with pure logic and wit, almost like a math proof. It sounds a little crazy, right? But let's dive into this fascinating idea. Because it turns out some of the greatest poets have used this exact kind of geometry to try and map the incredibly messy world of passion. And we're going to start right here with one of the most, well, shocking opening lines in modern love poetry. This is from Carol Ann Duffy's poem, Valentine. She's not offering chocolates, no flowers. She gives you a vegetable. It's such a bold, almost confrontational move that it immediately forces you to ask, right? An onion for Valentine's Day? You have to wonder, what on earth is going on here? Is this some kind of joke? Or, I don't know, an insult? Seriously, what kind of love poem kicks things off by throwing out every single romantic symbol we have and replacing it with something that literally makes you cry? So to figure out this very, very strange Valentine, we've got to unravel a bit of a mystery. See, this isn't just some quirky modern poem. It's actually part of a much older, much more intellectual way of thinking about love. That's right, 400 years old. Duffy is reaching way back into a tradition that started in the 17th century. She's using an old playbook to write a very new kind of love song, one that's all about raw truth instead of tired romantic cliches. So what exactly is this playbook? Well, this tradition is called metaphysical poetry, and it is all about this idea we're calling the geometry of passion. It's a style that has the guts to smash together these really intense, powerful feelings with equally intense, powerful thinking. The famous critic T.S. Eliot really hit the nail on the head when he described these poets as having a unified sensibility. What he meant, in simple terms, is that for these writers, thinking was feeling. An idea wasn't just an idea, it was a full-blown emotional experience. They didn't see any difference between the head and the heart. In fact, they used logic and wit as their compass to navigate the deepest parts of passion. And their absolute favorite tool for this was something called the metaphysical conceit. Now, this isn't your average metaphor, oh no. This is a wild, super elaborate, and honestly, often shocking comparison between two things that seem to have nothing in common. The most famous one? It's from the poet Donne. Get this. He compared the souls of two lovers to the two legs of a drawing compass. I mean, how much more unromantic and intellectual can you get? But he used it to prove this incredibly deep, emotional point about how their connection was just unbreakable. So let's actually look at the architects of this whole style. We're going to zero in on two absolute giants, John Donne and Andrew Marvell. These are the guys who drew up the original blueprints for this logical, argumentative way of looking at love. Now, what's so cool is that these two poets use the exact same tools, but for totally different reasons. Donne was all about using his wit to build these airtight arguments for a perfect, almost spiritual harmony in love. He was after stability, transcendence. Marvell, though, he used that same logic like a weapon of seduction, arguing with this desperate urgency that, hey, time is running out. Donne's geometry is all about balance, perfection, the perfect circle. In his famous compass conceit, one lover is the fixed foot in the center, and the other roams, but they stay perfectly connected, always creating that perfect circle. For Donne, logic is the proof that true love is a stable, balanced, eternal thing, a kind of spiritual harmony. Marvell's geometry couldn't be more different. It's a straight, rushing line, a speeding arrow. His most famous poem, To His Coy Mistress, is this brilliant, brutal three-part argument. It goes, 1, if we had all the time in the world, your shyness would be fine. 2, newsflash, we don't. 3, therefore, let's love each other right now. His logic isn't about stability at all. It's about motion, speed, and this desperate race against the ticking clock. Okay, so now that we're armed with these 17th century blueprints, let's get back to that onion. Because now we can see that Carol Ann Duffy isn't just being weird for the sake of being weird. She's being metaphysical. She is completely reinventing this tradition for our modern world. The onion is Duffy's modern metaphysical conceit. Just look at it. She compares it to a moon wrapped in brown paper, finding something cosmic and beautiful in the totally mundane. Its layers, of course, suggest the complexity of a relationship. But here's the crucial twist. Unlike Donne or Marvell, Duffy isn't trying to persuade or seduce anyone. She uses this conceit to lay out a painful truth. Love can hurt. It can blind you with tears.
Her poem is a demand for brutal, unflinching emotional honesty.
So when you lay it all out like this, you can see this amazing evolution over 400 years. John Donne uses the compass to prove a philosophical point about unity. Andrew Marvell uses the winged chariot to argue for physical passion. And then Carol Ann Duffy comes along and uses the onion to reveal a deep psychological truth. The tool, that wild comparison, the conceit, it's the same. But its purpose has shifted so dramatically, from persuasion to just pure, honest revelation.
So what's the takeaway here? Why does this really intellectual, almost argumentative approach to something as deeply emotional as love still feel so relevant and so powerful today?
Well, the big idea is that this is way more than just some dusty old literary tradition. It's a whole way of looking at the world that insists our brains are just as important as our hearts when we talk about love. The tools, the wit, the logic, the shocking comparisons, they're totally timeless. They've just evolved. They've gone from being used for persuasion to being used to demand real, raw authenticity from ourselves and our partners.
And that brings us right back to T.S. Eliot. This quote really gets to the absolute heart of it. For these poets, an idea wasn't just some abstract concept. It was something you could feel. It actually changed you. And it's this complete fusion of thinking and feeling that makes their work, from Donne's compass all the way to Duffy's onion, so electric and so lasting.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last question. If you can map love with the logic of a compass, or a speeding arrow, or even the layers of an onion, what shape does it take for you? What surprising, witty, and brutally honest comparison would you use to define it? It's definitely something to think about.